going to talk about diagramming, and I think diagramming is so much fun. It's like playing a game, and diagramming will help you understand our language better, the English language better. It helps you understand what your verbs are, what your nouns are, what your adjectives, what they're doing, what they're describing, and it helps you understand what each part of speech is when you're diagramming, because you have to identify it and then put it with what it's describing. So we're going to, in this sentence, after this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and start abbreviating. I've always spelt like adjectives out and adverbs out, but now this is the abbreviation for adjective. We're going to talk about adjectives, adverbs, and indirect objects. Indirect object is that it sits in an object position in a sentence, and we'll talk about that, and I'll show you where that is. So in object positions, only nouns, pronouns, or anything that acts as a noun sits in an object position. So we have also direct objects. They are nouns, pronouns, or anything that acts as a noun will sit in a direct object position. Pronouns, what's a pronoun, boys?
He, she, him, her, it.
Right. He, she, him, her, it, they, them, their, whatever. They are replacing your noun. That's why they can sit in an object position or a noun position in a sentence, because they replace nouns. Now we have antecedents. Do you guys remember what an antecedent is?
She'll be back in 10 minutes.
Okay, nice. So what's the antecedent then in that? Lisa. Okay, so Paul gave a great example. If you say, Lisa went to the store, she will be back in 10 minutes. She is the pronoun. What's the antecedent?
Lisa.
Lisa is the antecedent. And so, thanks, Paul. That's how you'd figure out what antecedent is. It's the pronoun, whatever it's talking about and whatever it's replacing. The tree's leaves fell. It's now bare. So what's the pronoun there? It's. And what, or it, because now we have it is now bare, right? It is your pronoun. What is the antecedent is tree. So now we have our predicate nominative, and that is a noun position in the sentence. And then we also have a predicate adjective, which sits in the exact same position, but when it's acting as an adjective, it's a predicate adjective, not a noun position there. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the first sentence, and I made up some corny sentences. They're easy, simple sentences. So we have Daniel was the most adorable baby, which is completely true. He was seriously the cutest baby in the world. I take him to the store and he would make everybody smile because he smiled at everybody. Anyways, so let's go ahead and diagram that. First off, you always want to find your verb. And then the verb will help you find your subject, because the subject is always the noun or the pronoun or anything that's acting as a noun. But there's lots of nouns in your sentence, and so your verb has to match the subject, that noun. It can't match any of the other nouns in the sentence, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so now what is the verb in this sentence? Was, you're right. Okay, so we're going to start off diagramming. And I always make the line small at first, and you draw your line, and then when you draw the line all the way through, and this knows that you're going to separate your subject and your predicate. This line all the way through separates that. Now, I always recommend that you read the entire sentence before you start diagramming, because if you don't, you're going to end up erasing because you're not understanding exactly everything in this sentence. So Daniel was the most adorable baby. So this is the verb line. Daniel was. Okay, so was is either a be verb, a linking verb, or a helping verb. So, but let's find the subject first. Is there any action verbs that go with that, boys? There is not. So Daniel was, what's the did? Who did the did? You always ask who or what was. Daniel was. So now you have the subject. You've found the subject. Okay? So, well, Daniel was. Now you have to find, if you have was or any of the be verbs in here, or those would be the linking verbs also, then you know that you have either a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective right off the bat. If you have nothing that's action, you know you have one of these two. So if that's the case and we don't have any other verb here, no action verb to go with this verb, so we know that this is either a be verb or a linking verb. And since we have something in here that's going to attach here, we know that this is going to be either a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective. And so we'll just extend that line. Daniel was what? What? No, Daniel was a what? He was a baby, right? So this is a predicate nominative. It's not an adjective. See how this is a noun. It's replacing what Daniel was. He was a baby. Does that make sense? So now we have Daniel was the most adorable baby, and this is your predicate nominative. Okay, so now where are these going to go? Let's talk about the what is adorable describing?
Baby.
It's describing baby. It's describing baby. So he was an adorable baby. So this is an adjective because adjectives describe nouns. So then you would write adorable here. Okay. How about the and most? How are you going to?
Is describing adorable.
Right, because you can't say he is the most baby. That's goofy. He is the most adorable. So this is an adverb describing is describing an adjective. Okay? So if it doesn't make sense to say that it's describing something else, if it doesn't make sense to say most baby, then you know it's describing something else. So what is the?
Describes baby.
It's describing baby. So the is your what?
Article.
It's your article. See how the set up for this noun? But you have words in between it, but if you see the, you know your noun's coming. And this the is going to this baby. Does that make sense? So this part of the sentence is the main part of the sentence. Daniel was baby. This one, which is same sentence except I have replaced he. And that is a pronoun. And so we're going to hurry and diagram that. And what's your verb?
Was.
Was. Well, who was?
He.
What was? He. See? Now we have our pronoun right here. And we have our predicate nominative, baby. Okay?
Adorable describes baby.
Right. And we have adorable.
Adorable.
Now you can ask what kind. What kind of baby is he? He's an adorable baby. It's the baby. Now remember, also when you have a capital letter, wherever the capital letter is in the sentence, you have to capitalize it on the line. So we know that he is started with it. Yeah, honey?
You forgot to add most.
Nice, thank you. It's the most adorable. All right, so now we have our pronoun. What's the pronoun replacing? What's the antecedent of he? Daniel. He is Daniel. All right, so now let's go ahead and diagram this one. It's almost the same as this, but I've added in some more words so you can see how that works. So since it's basically the same, we're going to just quickly make our big long line. So what's your verb?
Was.
Was. Who was? Who are they talking about? Daniel was. Now, this is your linking verb. It's linking your predicate nominative, baby, back to Daniel. It's changing the name to Daniel. Since this right here is not an action verb, you know you're going to have a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective. And since this is a noun, then you know that it is a predicate nominative, because predicate nominatives rename. They act as nouns. Predicate adjectives are obviously adjectives that describe the subject. Okay? So now we have cuddly Daniel, most smiling, most adorable baby. So what do we have? Words in the sentence. So we have Daniel, we've already put out Daniel, we put out was, and we have the baby, the predicate nominative. Okay, so now let's talk about cuddly. Now, LYs, if you see an LY, almost always it's going to be an adverb that describes, what do adverbs describe, boys?
The verb.
The verb, adjective, and other adverbs. But once in a while, you'll see them describing adjectives. Or once in a while, you'll see them acting as an adjective. And so that's what cuddly is doing. We say cuddly Daniel. So oftentimes you will not see the ly acting as an adjective, but it is in this sentence. And we have cuddly right here. And it has to be capitalized because it's starting the beginning of the word. Can you see that okay, Daniel? And so now, let's look at this. Is it describing the smiling?
No.
No. The most?
The baby.
The baby. So the is setting up for the noun. So we're going to put the in here. Okay, what do we have? The
Gerund.
Smiling baby. Ooh, nice. We have, now this looks like it's a gerund. It could be a gerund, but this is actually, this is a participle describing what? Is it describing smiling most?
Baby.
Smiling adorable is smiling baby. So we're going to put it on a participle line. And you have to, whoops. And it just kind of like flows. And when it's flowing like this, then you know that this right here is a present participle acting as an adjective to describe baby. So that's why you look at this and think, well, that's the verb. But then but oh my gosh, I have the verb here. But it's not the verb. This is a participle describing baby. All right? So let's just pull it out there, and then we have adorable. And then what we have on here, Paul? Most, and that's your adverb. Whoops. I was gonna put adverb. Can you guys see that? Okay, so now we have cuddly, quiet Daniel was the happy, smiling, most adorable baby. Okay, so now let's talk about this. So we already know our basic line is, what's your verb?
Was.
Was. Who was?
Daniel.
Daniel was. So now we have another word in there that it is describing Daniel, or that is replacing Daniel, and it's acting as a predicate nominative. What is it? Baby. So you want to get your main words up here before you get onto your other words. So now we have Daniel was baby predicate nominative. All right, so now let's get in. So we have cuddly, quiet. What's cuddly describing? Cuddly is describing Daniel. So we have cuddly, Well, what's quiet describing? Quiet is describing Daniel. So cuddly quiet. So you can have two adjectives right next to each other. So cuddly quiet Daniel was the happy smiling most adorable baby. Okay, so it's going to, okay, so now let's talk about what the is. The is describing what?
Baby.
Baby, it's the baby. So you can write that down. You just like work through your words. Happy is describing what? It's a happy smiling, happy most, happy adorable, happy baby. So it's happy. So we know this is an adjective. This is an adjective. This is setting up your noun. This right here, you're immediately looking for your noun. It's the baby. All right? So smiling, what's smiling describing? Most?
Present participle.
Oh, nice. It's a present participle acting as
A baby.
an adjective. It's a present participle acting as an adjective describing baby. Does that make sense? So that you have, your line has, my line's kind of funky. It should probably be more like that. It's kind of hard to write like this with you guys trying to get you guys to see. Now, most, baby. Now we have an adverb there describing an adjective. What is it?
Adorable.
What's the adverb? So we do have adorable, that's an adjective describing baby. What's describing baby? It's the adorable baby. See how, and then we have an adverb there describing your adjective. Most. Okay, so see how you can just add all of these fluff words that have huge amount of meaning to your sentences. So you're adding these are adjectives. Adjectives describe nouns. See, now look at this. This is the noun position right here. Right here is a noun position. This is the subject, this is the predicate nominative. All right, this right here, these are adjectives. Right here are adjectives. Now anything off of the adjective would be an adverb. Okay? Some sentences about Paul, and Paul is very thoughtful, and he shares a lot with people, with his friends and things, so I thought I would put a sentence together about him. Okay, so now first off, we want to read the entire sentence. Paul wore a bright blue Hawaiian jacket. Okay, and then you look for your verb. And knowing what that is, I know I can just do a big old thing right here. So what's your verb? What's the did? Wore. So we have an action verb. He's doing something there. He wore. Who wore?
Paul.
Paul. Paul did the wearing. Paul wore. Okay, now we have a direct object here receiving the action of the verb. What's being worn?
Jacket.
The jacket. Okay, so now the direct object, if you see this, it is a straight line not crossing this line. This line says this is the subject, this is the predicate, but this line doesn't cross over that line. So now Paul wore a jacket. Now let's find, so we have that's your subject, this is your verb, and this is your direct object. So now we have to find what these are. So we have a word in there that is describing the direct object. What is it?
Hawaiian.
Oh, it's a Hawaiian jacket. So we could put this on, Hawaiian. Okay.
And then blue is describing Hawaiian.
Okay?
No, jacket.
Yeah, and you know what? That could be also, not all grammarians feel that it should be all one way. Now, lots of things should be one way. I would say blue jacket. So this could be maybe diagrammed a couple ways.
Blue.
Okay, it's bright blue. Excellent. So this is an adjective describing jacket, but we don't say bright, but we could say bright jacket, but I would say it's a bright blue jacket. So this is an adverb describing blue.
And then is a describe it.
Sorry, it's hard to write sideways, so my handwriting isn't right. So is an article describing what?
Bright.
Oh, you can't have describing adverbs and, what's that? It's describing the jacket. Now look at this. This is an article. You know your articles is a noun is going to follow it. That's your noun. Now this is an object position of the sentence. And it's really important that you understand where your object positions are in a sentence, because only nouns can sit there. Anything that's acting like a noun can sit there. Okay? Object position. Oops, direct object. Okay? This is the subject position. This is where a noun sits. It sits in the subject. Okay, so now we've just added more to this one. So we know that we can just add that on. What is your verb? What's the did?
Wore.
Wore. Who wore?
Paul.
Paul wore. Okay, what's being worn? Now you have a direct object that is receiving the action of the verb. And see how we have right here an action verb. So you know if you have an action verb, if you have lots in here, look for a direct object. You don't look for predicate nominatives or predicate adjectives, but because they only come with linking verbs or be verbs. Okay? So what do we have? What's our direct object?
Jacket.
Jacket. So now we bring our line straight. See how this one's sideways? Jacket. So this is the direct object position of a sentence, and it's receiving what the verb is doing. All right? So now we have Paul wore the jacket, D-O. So we have those three words out. So happily Paul wore the bright blue. So see how happily right here, it's an L-Y. Is it happily Paul? No, see how we had up here, we had cuddly Daniel. But Daniel, this one is describing Daniel, and that's very unusual. This one is not describing Paul. It's describing how. How what? What's happily describing?
How wore.
Yeah. How did he wear it? He wore it happily. So this is an adverb describing the verb. Okay? And you need to capitalize that. See how the ly goes on your verbs or adjectives or another adverb. Ly's describe, and they're almost always adverbs. All right? So now we have bright blue Hawaiian jacket. Now we have a word in there that is, okay, so here we have jacket, and I have, right in this sentence, there is an adjective describing jacket. Paul, what is it?
Blue.
Okay, it's a blue jacket. Okay, we can cross that out. We also have another adjective describing jacket. Bright, or we could, it could be a bright jacket. Okay.
And
It's
then,
a jacket.
And then bright.
Bright is an adverb that's describing the word, the adjective blue. Okay, and we have another adjective, Daniel, describing jacket. What is it?
Hawaiian.
Hawaiian.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Okay. All right, now let's look at this one. Happily and proudly, Paul wore a bright blue Hawaiian jacket. All right, so we're gonna come up a little bit. What's your verb? What's the did?
Wore.
They wore. That's the did. Who wore?
Paul.
Paul wore. That's your subject. Okay? Paul wore. Now we have a direct object in this sentence that is receiving the action of the verb. What is it?
Jacket.
Jacket. The jacket is being worn. Now this line is saying that this is a direct object. This is an object position in the sentence right here. It's called a direct object, and it's receiving the action of the verb. We have two adverbs in here that is describing the verb. What is it?
Happily and proudly.
Happily and proudly. We don't say, see how it looks like right here? It looks like all of this is a subject, but it's not. LYs almost always describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs, right? So this is describing wore. How did they wear it? So how did they, you could say, how did they Paul? Happily Paul? Proudly Paul? Or is it how did, okay, so when that's the case, you have two adverbs right here. So we're going to attach them. And here you put and then we're going to put happily and then proudly. Sorry, you guys. Anyways, that's our word. So now we're going to go over here to the predicate side, and we have an adjective describing the direct object jacket. What is it?
Blue. Hawaiian.
Okay, we have Hawaiian. Okay.
Blue is describing jacket.
Blue.
Is describing blue.
Blue is an adjective describing jacket. Bright is an adverb describing blue. And we have an article in here describing the noun jacket. What is it? Okay, so now, right in here, let's do this one again. It's almost the same sentence, but it's important for you guys to get the verbiage, so you're asking the right questions. How are you going to find it? How are you going to find your verb? What's your verb in here? It's the did. What are they doing in this sentence? This is almost the same kind of sentence, so I'm just going to write my line. What is the did? And we're going to say, happily and willfully, Paul gave Lisa the bright blue Hawaiian jacket. Okay, what's your verb? Gave. So who gave?
Paul.
Paul did the giving, right? Okay, so now we have a direct object that is receiving the action of the verb. What is it?
Lisa.
What's being given?
Jacket.
The jacket's being given, so that is your direct object. Now, we have an indirect object. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more confusing. The indirect object is receiving the jacket. Who's receiving the jacket in this sentence? Lisa is receiving the jacket. So now the indirect object always comes off of the verb, and it comes straight down like this, and then you put Lisa on here. If you see a line like that with nothing on the side right here, you know it's coming off the verb, you know you have an indirect object. Okay, so let's go through that. Paul gave a jacket to Lisa. So this is your basic setup of your your sentence. So then you have all these fluff words to help you describe this sentence. Okay, so we have right here, we have adverbs describing what? It's how. How are they describing?
Oh.
Happily and willfully is describing gave. So then they would come off slanted and right here. And we would have happily and willfully. I'm not going to write it all in. And then the bright blue Hawaiian jacket is exactly like this. And then you would describe that the same way. Okay? Does that make sense? So you would ask the questions. If you're trying to find this out, well, what kind of jacket? It's the jacket. Well, it's the blue jacket. It's the Hawaiian jacket. See how that describes this? So it needs to come off of the word it describes. All right? Now, your LYs typically will come off of your verb, but it just depends on, it could also come off of your adjective and another adverb. So just depends. And then the reason why it's so important, so we only went over 2 object positions in the sentence right now. We're going to go over some more in the next one, but what are the 2 object positions that we went over in this lesson, boys? So we went over the direct object position and the indirect object position. So why do you think that's important to know? There are some words that will only sit in these positions. Now, only nouns can sit in object positions, but there are some words that can only sit in object positions. And this is a huge confusable right here. Who or whom ate my cookie?
Who?
Okay, who ate my cookie? Whom ate my cookie? So what are we going to use? And this is crazy confusable. Whom only sits in object positions in your sentence. And if you don't know what an object position is in a sentence and you don't understand what they are, you will not get some of these words that are so incredibly tricky correct. So who ate my cookie? Now, who goes in the subject position. Now, if you look at your diagramming, you know what is the subject position. Boom. Who goes in noun positions, and they typically always hit the subject position right here. They, subject, 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 subject. You know when you diagram, you're understanding what the subject actually is, because you can have lots of other nouns, but you know what the subject is when you really diagram a lot, and you immediately know what the subject is. So something like this, you could also say whom ate my cookie. It doesn't quite sound exactly right, and we're kind of getting away with that, but you have to know if it has to be done really well for you to have this, because you have to have a preposition sitting in front of this and it's assumed, okay? Because this can only sit in an object position of a sentence, and you have object positions in prepositional phrases. And so that can only sit in an object position, but it looks like it could just sit in this one. Who ate my cookie? Whom ate my cookie? So you have to say to whom ate my cookie? From whom ate my cookie? You would have to know what preposition you're going to sit right in front of here to make this actually work. And that's one of the reasons there are pronouns that will only sit in object positions in your sentence, and that's all that they are allowed to sit. And so if you're not understanding where your object positions are in the sentence, and we only went over 2 in this lesson, then you're not going to know how to use these properly. Okay, so anyways, I hope that was helpful, and I hope you will tackle diagramming, because it's so fun, especially when you really start understanding it. And I think there's some diagramming pamphlets out there that you could grab and practice diagramming and just have it fun like a game. Anyways, I really love Sudoku, and you can almost do it something, or it's actually called Sudoku, but my dad always called it Sudoku, and he's passed, so I like to use that term. I really hope this was helpful for you, because once you learn how to do this, you are going to just excel on being able to do better structures in your sentences. You're going to be able to actually catch your verb and subject issues that you have to match those up to. Anyways, I hope to see you in the next lesson. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.